Alright the squad, big news coming out of TNA yesterday was that Scott D'Amore has been fired from the dance floor of TNA. I felt like this needed its own video, and I want to dissect this and give both sides of the coin. The Hawk doesn't usually deal with wrestling news, but I will this time. Okay, first the backstory. Scott D'Amore has a long history of TNA dating back to the Slapnuts era. He was the backstage agent for the ladies and is largely credited for his creation of the Knockouts division, and for a few years that was Revolutionary Women's Wrestling. He was also an on-screen heel manager with his Team Canada, Robert Roode, Eric Young, P.T. Williams, Johnny Devine, and some other guy nobody could ever care about. He was a pretty good heel, but he wasn't involved with anything too serious. He would eventually be gone from TNA, but was taken back to TNA in 2017 by a wild Slapnuts, and since the end of 2017 he was the vice president of Impact Wrestling. It was here that Scott D'Amore saving TNA became a thing. He turned attendances around, cut a lot of losses, whilst at the same time rebuilding brand image. Anthem were close to washing their hands with the company, and this may have happened if it had not been for Scott D'Amore and Don Callis. In May 2023 he became the full president of the company, only for yesterday Anthem, the TNA owners, to release a statement. The statement read that we are sorry to announce that we have today fired Scott D'Amore from the dance floor. There was an issue in catering and Scott ate 10 hamburgers, leaving our wrestlers without a meal before the show. Instead of apologising, he apparently screamed "fuck Anthem" and "fuck the police" and rode Giselle Shaw around the arena butt naked. No, I'm kidding. They basically just said that he's fired and we're naming a new president, a man called Anthony Ciccione. Ciccione. I have no idea how to pronounce this one. Don't get too excited about old Anthony. He's not worked in wrestling before and he's just some stooge from within the Anthem company. They're looking to make TNA more streamlined with the company. The new president had this to say: "We have many exciting, groundbreaking announcements coming up over the next few months. Our momentum is continuing. TNA Wrestling features an incredible roster of in-ring talent who will continue to shine and deliver incredible matches and moments. We have a behind-the-scenes crew and staff who are incredible at their jobs. Our business is being run by experienced professionals and the fans will notice many improvements in the coming months. TNA's success is attributable to its teamwork, and that team will continue to grow with more input from Anthem's top executive partners and others. We know departures of well-respected executives can create uncertainty, but we are fully committed to this new business model. We're entering a new stage of growth. These changes bring together more leadership experience to help us elevate our operations." Exciting stuff. Many TNA fans have gone into a sad state today with people threatening Anthem and the new president of TNA. People who have never watched the show before are demanding answers, and they're furious because they're enjoying watching clips of all the 5-star matches lately, I guess. D'Amore led TNA through some rough times and his dedication to the show was clear to see. He cared when many people had given up on the show. It was only right that he should be the one to lead the company, and it had been a fairly positive year for TNA. They repaired their damaged reputation, forged deals with AAA, New Japan and the WWE, and got people talking about them again online. The fact that they were actually able to tour the UK and run TV shows over here last autumn was a big deal for them. And Scott D'Amore was there with them the entire time, hyping the crowd and showing his passion. He was extremely hard-working. I know for a fact that he was the last person to leave the show in Newcastle that I attended, a long while after the wrestlers had gone home. This sort of hard work should be rewarded, not punished. Ultimately for me, it's just incredibly strange timing to fire someone. They had only just relaunched as TNA last month. They had just signed Dolph Ziggler and their YouTube views were getting more views than ever before. Wouldn't you want to keep the same man in charge who'd been there through the rebrand? Scott D'Amore has almost become the face of TNA. Fans firmly believed it was thanks to Scott D'Amore that they had so many great matches lately. Their recent pay-per-view was very good, the closest to old school TNA that I've seen in a while, and the attendance was the best in ages too. Now for the other side of the coin. Because we're mature here and we can open our minds to other opinions. Despite the buzz that had been created around the company following the relaunch as TNA, it was poor timing to do it. They announced the change, everybody was excited, and then nothing. For 3 months they did nothing. Nothing but reruns and highlight shows. They had created a buzz at the time, but the buzz had now gone and it had cooled off. Now I'm sure Scott D'Amore must have had some say over this rebranding. It was idiotic to say the least. Wait until January with the Dolph Ziggler signing, we may have been able to move the needle, but no, dumb. I'm not saying this was Scott D'Amore's doing, but come on, he is the company president, he must have had some input in this. Under Scott D'Amore, TNA mainly pushed the same old tired faces, and I know that these guys are popular with a lot of you and that's fine, but we have to think outside this little bubble, this little universe. They're all great on the card individually, they're the high wire act, but when every wrestler is the high wire act it gets really tiring. Most of them have a lack of personality, and the thing is, some of these guys actually do have a hidden personality. Everybody feels the same, barring a couple of exceptions. There aren't many entertainment-style wrestlers. Take the Motor City Machine Guns, for example. They were great in the 2000s, hilarious, and still backed it up in the ring. But under D'Amore, everyone is just so serious and miserable. Constantly pushing Tommy Dreamer, it's just embarrassing at this point. He looks like a badger with typhoid. Some of the recent signings have been positive, but most people are too similar. And the ladies, God help me the ladies, they have zero sex appeal. The show needs some. Every show needs some. I'm not saying hoes get naked, but a pretty face wouldn't hurt. Talking of the roster, Scott D'Amore dates Giselle Shaw, who he has pushed heavily, especially lately. I'm not going to discuss trans stuff here. I honestly don't care, let everyone just get on with their lives. What I will say is that Giselle was one of the few people actually making an effort and looking like they knew they were on the TV show. Most people looked scruffy and needed a good scrub in the bath. It made the show look and feel low budget. That's on Scott D'Amore. The show has been incredibly harmed by AEW. There really isn't much difference between the shows, except AEW has better wrestlers, higher production values and far bigger crowds. And therefore a far bigger audience. TNA just can't compete, and that's fine, it's forgivable. What isn't forgivable is the lack of their identity. There's no point being AEW light. Do something different. Think of ECW. They knew they couldn't compete, so they did wrestling differently to the WWE and WCW. Hardcore and more adult orientated. I'm not saying TNA needs to take that route, but they need to get some sort of identity. Just rebranding the show, changing the lights and changing the ring ropes isn't enough. TNA has 5-star matches? Great, so does AEW. Except people are actually talking about them. TNA has had a couple of 5-star Meltzer matches recently, but that hasn't meant a thing. Scott had a chance to try and forge an identity and take us back to the TNA times. Instead, it's the exact same show as Impact with just a few new faces mixed in. The audience under D'Amore averages 80,000. Even I can sometimes draw more viewers for a TNA related video. That shouldn't be the way at all. With 80,000 viewers, they can't be making any money. It's embarrassing, and I'm sure it's one of the reasons that he's gone. Over the past couple of years, they've given away all of their pay-per-views for free on YouTube, and now there's no point paying for the network app. I'm sure this made them a short-term profit, but now, what's the point? Why pay for the network app when you can watch this stuff for free on YouTube? Bad business decision. Ultimately, I think D'Amore made it easy for them, but I believe Anthem are gearing up to sell TNA to the WWE. They have been mending fences with them recently of Jordan Grace turning up at the Royal Rumble. They're probably thinking, let's bring in a new face with business acumen and get a good deal. That's what could be happening here. D'Amore wouldn't have been on board with that. On the whole, he did really well to revive the show, but what has really changed from 2 years ago? Viewership hasn't changed, the size of the company hasn't changed, so all he's achieved is keeping it ticking over and reinstalling some passion into the dying show. Until this news, their reputation had improved. Now people are saying it's just another TNA mistake. Overall, I think he deserved his shot to run the company. I'm sure he was doing what he thought was right for the company. You can't fault his passion for TNA. He got people talking again, even if ultimately that hasn't led to anything. TNA had to deactivate their Twitter due to the fan backlash. Honestly, this stuff on socials has made me feel sick recently. Everybody has way too much time on their hands nowadays to be angry about things when they should really be looking in the mirror. Impact Wrestling fans will disagree with most of my opinions in the video, and it's fine. But ask yourself, why isn't this show growing? Why isn't anyone else watching if it's so great? Is it possible that the show just isn't good? Is it possible that people would just rather watch AEW? It's the same as AEW, except Access TV is a much harder station to watch. And that's the point I'll end it on. Scott D'Amore leaving TNA is not the end of the world. He's just one guy who hasn't really changed the show that much, and the show will go on as long as the network wants them to go on. D'Amore did excellent to rebuild their reputation, but as long as they're on a bad TV network with a low budget, it's all meaningless. No matter how hard you work, no one is going to watch that channel. Most people I speak to say they can't even access that channel. No matter what I think, it's still an incredibly strange situation. There's got to be more to this than meets the eye. Why was he fired and instead not released, or simply given a new job title? To say you're fired implies something. We'll have to wait and find out. It makes it sound like Scott D'Amore has done something bad and tarnished his reputation and rapport he's built up with the fans. Is there more to this than meets the eye? Let me know down in the comments. I'm the Hawk and you've been listening to me talk.